Hi guys, Darth Deuces here, back from the Star Wars action figure review. Today, taking a look at something a little bit different. It is the SH Figuarts Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, I don't review really SH Figuarts figures. Don't know if I've ever reviewed a Figuarts on the channel. I feel like maybe I have back a few years ago in the past. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember. But I'm very picky when it comes to Figuarts and honestly imports in general, excluding Hot Toys, I guess. But yeah, I don't get too many imports. I actually don't own a single Mafex figure, and I only have a handful of Figuarts, all Star Wars. And basically, when it comes to Figuarts, because for the most part, I think Figuarts are pretty expensive, and the Black Series usually does good enough job with characters where I just usually prefer going with them. Sometimes the Black Series does a better job, in my opinion. But there is every once in a while, Figuarts does a figure that I think looks really good or fits a hole in my collection that Black Series has yet to fill or will never fill. And this figure kind of classifies as that. It is we have yet to actually get an accurate Boba Fett figure in the Black Series that is actually accurate to the Book of Boba Fett look. We did get that deluxe throne room Boba Fett figure last year, which was labeled as Book of Boba Fett, but it was actually accurate to how he appeared in The Mandalorian. And there aren't very many figures of this look so far. This is the first 6-inch scale figure for this specific look. Hasbro did a vintage collection figure for this look, and Hot Toys has one coming. I assume Mafex and probably Black Series will do this look at some point as well. But I was really looking forward to this because this is one of my favorite looks for Boba Fett, and maybe an unpopular opinion, but I really did enjoy the show, and I really want to have this look for the character in the 6-inch scale to go on my Black Series display. So yeah, I ended up getting it. And it pretty much meets my expectations. There are some things I really like. There are some things I'm not super happy about, but I think for the most part, my issues with this figure are pretty minimal, and it's a really cool one. So let's just jump in and take a closer look at the figure itself. I don't have any of the extra accessories on him or anything for the most part. Have him pretty much how he comes straight out of the box. And I think the sculpt and paint of the figure is really well done. Figuarts can sometimes kind of come off as cartoony looking, which has also dissuaded me from getting some of their figures. I much prefer a more realistic approach to the figures and the characters. But I think here they did a pretty good job of making him look pretty realistic. I really like the tone of green they used in the different colors. Love the yellow and the dark red or burgundy red or whatever you want to call that. I think all look really good. He's got those little silver nicks and battle damage, not as much as his original trilogy look, but a little more than when he first repainted it because he's gotten into a few scuffles since then. So he's got some of that little bit of damage, which I think looks pretty good. I think the helmet looks pretty good as well. I do think it looks a little different from the promo shots. For some reason, Figuarts likes to make the visors on their Mandalorian helmeted characters a bit wide, I guess wider looking, different looking than they actually appear in the show. So I don't think it's 100% accurate, but I still think it looks pretty good. Maybe comes off as maybe looking a little small compared to the rest of the body, but compared to the unhelmeted sculpts, which we'll get into when I talk about accessories, it looks like this would be a helmet that would fit over that head sculpt if they had done it that way instead of making them interchangeable. So I think it works pretty good. You do have the moving rangefinder, it goes down, which I really like a lot. You can maybe argue the actual piece there for the rangefinder is way too thick than it's supposed to be, but honestly I prefer that. It's less likely to snap off, if I'm being honest, and I still think it looks pretty good, so that's cool. He's got this little scarf neck thing, which is just a plastic separate piece. A really nicely printed emblem there. The details, there are actually separate lettered details in that little slots on his armor chest plate there, the little red whatever they are, numbers or lettering, whatever it is actually there. It's hard to see, but it is all individually printed on there, which is really nice. Really nice Mythosaur emblem on the shoulder pad there. The gauntlet details I think look pretty good. Some nice little silver and gunmetal coloring details, as well as the hoses here are of a relatively durable plastic. I'd still be pretty wary about them when you're articulating this figure, but they don't seem like they'll break easily, but yeah, something to keep in mind. Then on this side, you've got the gadgets and weaponry, some decently painted details, which I'm a pretty big fan of. Looks pretty good. The belt's nice as well. Lots of nice little gold details. You got these little cylinders, which I'm assuming is ammunition, probably for the cycler rifle or something. I don't know, but it looks cool. That's all that really matters. It's a nice back detail, pretty clean looking back. You'll see how the jetpack attaches a bit later. But I do like how they have a configuration for this figure to look clean on the back when you don't have the jetpack on. He does have a soft goods lower robe, which is good in the sense that it allows for a lot of articulation. It won't get in the way at all. But I don't think this looks as good, again, as the promo pictures had the lower robe looking. The material is a bit more, I guess, rigid, so it kind of flares out. It doesn't like to just droop down, just sit down around his legs. Like, I'd like him to come down straighter when he's just standing there. When he's in action poses, it looks good. It looks like it's kind of flowing in the air, whatever, it looks nice. But when you have him just standing there, it does look a little odd, I guess. It's not too bad, but I think it could have been a little better. Maybe some looser fabric so it would hang more naturally. I don't know. Then you got the pants, nice detail, but not a whole lot to talk about there. Pistol in the holster. I like how the holster looks. The pistol is molded in there because if you're not familiar with Figuarts, instead of having functioning holsters, you actually have a swappable holster that will have you a swapping holster that has no gun in it, which I guess they do so it looks better. I would have preferred if it's just a functioning holster, but it does look good, so I'm not going to complain too much. You got the knee pads that look nice, and you got the silver paint on the rocket darts, which I think look pretty good on his knee guards, which is nice. And the boots look good as well. They've got a kind of a subtle black wash, which bring out some detail, which looks nice. And then, the boots look like boots. Not too much else to talk about. Don't want to drone on too much about how the figure looks. You can see for yourself. But I think he looks pretty good. And I think proportionally wise, for the most part, he looks pretty good as well. I don't think the joints are too obvious. Well, for the most part, obvious looking or ugly looking anyways. I think proportionally, the figure looks pretty good. In terms of articulation, Figuarts figure has a lot of articulation. You have multiple joints in the neck there, so you get a lot of movement. You got shifting movement. You can look up, although it does get a bit gappy there. You can look down a fair amount. Pivot, rotation. Shoulder joints go about 90. There is kind of like a butterfly in there, so you can get a bit of shifting movement in there. A swivel cut at the bicep there. You've got those Figuart style elbow hinges. They go past 90, and they do rotate as well. And then you have those Figuart style wrist joints. You go up and down, or if you rotate the joint around, they can go in and out, and they rotate the wrist as well. A torso joint that actually moves a little better than I was expecting to. You can actually crunch forward a little bit. It goes back a bit. Rotation, pivot, hip joints. You can kick them really far forward. Actually, they go pretty far back. Go out quite a decent amount. I wouldn't try to force the joints too much, because Figuarts are a bit more fragile than a Black Series figure would be, if that's what you're familiar with. There's a swivel there at the thigh. You have a hinge joint that goes a bit past 90, which I think works pretty good. And you have a joint at the ankle, which goes up, goes down just a bit, pivots a decent amount, and then you also get a toe bend. So lots of articulation. You can get most of the poses you want out of this guy. Although when it comes to accessories, I will mention some limitations, and accessories is what we will talk about right now. So probably the best part about this figure is it comes with a ton of stuff, which is also why the price tag on this guy is fairly high. But first of all, it comes with a plethora of hand options. So in the packaging, you have 2 closed fists, which I think are pretty standard. You also get a pair of grip hands, with the left hand actually having a bit more open grip at the bottom of the last 2 fingers, which is kind of interesting. They're not both just the same. You get 2 grip hands. You get 2 pointing / blaster holding hands. They're meant for holding the blaster, but you can also just use them as pointing hands if you wanted to. So that's interesting and kind of cool. You get 2 of these kind of almost cup holding hands. These are hands that are meant for holding the weight of the rifle for 2-handed rifle poses. So that's nice. I like when you get hands specifically meant for that, as opposed to having to stretch out hands to do that, which you usually have to do with Black Series. And you get 2 open kind of action hands, which I think look good as well. Would have liked maybe some just relaxed hands. These ones aren't quite relaxed, but not a big deal. And one thing that's nice is that all the hands are actually really easy to swap out. I feel like sometimes Figuarts and import figures, hands can be pretty tough to swap, but these ones all swap really easily. I guess we can talk about the jetpack now. So you do get the jetpack and it is sculpted and painted really nicely. The battle damage, I like the blue on it, and that's kind of cool. The rocket on there, the boosters, so the thrusters, you can articulate the thrusters there on ball joints, and you can remove the rocket. And there are reasons for these, which I'll show. So the rocket, you actually get another version of the rocket right here, which I remember it being the rocket when Cobb Vanth had the armor. I don't remember Boba ever actually having this version of the rocket on the jetpack when he was wearing it. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I watched the show, but you do get that regardless, so you can swap that. Put that one in instead if you so desire. You can also swap out the thrusters. They're just via ball joint pegs, and you can actually put on these thrusters, which have the actual thruster effects attached to the thrusters. So instead of Black Series having just the thruster effects that you plug into the thrusters, you actually swap the whole thruster out. I think that looks pretty good. So pretty big fan of that. Take those off. Put the normal ones back on. And then another cool effect accessory you actually get this effect. That is to simulate the rocket actually firing out of the jetpack. And I think this looks super cool on the figure, him firing that. That's super nice. I'll show that in a second, but we'll actually show you how to put this on. So he has some pegs on the back of the jetpack, but there are no holes. Well, what you have to do is you actually have to remove the whole back plate here, and these little silver pins or whatever, plugs or whatever you want to call it, you actually have to remove these. So they're not that hard to remove. You just push them out, pull them out. You just want to be extremely careful because they're very tiny, super easy to lose, which is the most unfortunate thing about them. But you take that out, I just like to attach the jetpack onto the chest or back plate there, and then attach them both onto the figure, and then those are on there. Looks really good and is on there really nice and securely. It ain't falling off, which is really nice. And I'll show you with that effect part on there. There's the effect part. I think that looks really cool. I like how that looks a lot. I'll take that off for now. Move these out of the way. So yeah, there he is with the jetpack. Looking pretty good. I guess next you get a couple of unhelmeted Tamir Morrison head sculpts, which is super cool, but also maybe one of my biggest disappointments of the figure, I guess. So you actually get two. Here's the standard head, and you also get the neck with like the black wrap around it. And I think on the one hand, I think the sculpt is bang on. The sculpt itself, I think, is bang on to Tamir Morrison. It looks absolutely excellent. My issue is that the face print, for whatever reason, is extremely faint. I don't know why, but they made the print really faint. I think it works like around the mouth. I think it looks pretty good, fairly realistic, but like the eyebrows are really faint. You can barely tell he has his scar that goes across his face there. And the eyes are really faint where from a distance you can't really notice it, but up close it almost kind of looks like they're glazed over, like he's blind, which is kind of weird. But I think it's still actually probably the best, outside of Hot Toys, maybe I think the best Tamira likeness we've gotten of this look. The Black Series one's not bad, but I think it's honestly way better than that. Even with the faint face printing, I think it still looks way better than the Black Series. And I do actually think it's better than the Vintage Collection figure, and I thought the Vintage Collection figure was pretty good. But to put that on, you can just pop the head off. I just removed that little piece, and you have to pop the neck off, which is kind of a pain, not too bad. And you just put the little thing, neckerchief thing, and then pop the head back on. And then there you have the Tamira head on the body, and I think that looks pretty good. But as you can tell, like I said, that faint printing, I don't know if they're trying to go for maybe a more realistic look, because I guess realistically, people's eyes and whatnot aren't quite that brightly color defined, but yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Still not 100% perfect, but looks pretty good. The other expression you get, I do like that you get another expression. You get him kind of angry there. He got his mouth kind of open and angry, ready to fight. I think that looks pretty good as well. So yeah, pretty cool that you get those options. Other options, like I said, there is the swappable holster. For if you want to have him using the pistol, you can have the empty holster, and that is easy enough to swap out. You just untab this little strap, you just untab the holster, and then there's a little ball peg it just comes off of, and then you just peg that on, slot it on, and tab that in. And there you go. The holster is empty. Again, I'm trying to get him to stand here. He also comes with a few weapons. So he does come with his pistol, which I think is nicely sculpted and painted. Of course, you got to come with the rifle as well, also nicely sculpted and painted. And these weapons are made of a pretty sturdy plastic. A little bit of give, but I would not bend these. They will snap and break, so be wary of that. But those look both pretty nice. And you get his gaffy stick, whatever you want to call it, which is super awesome. They include this. I'm very happy they did so. This is painted and sculpted really nicely. And to put in his hand easily, it does actually come apart in the middle, which is nice. But do be careful with this. The peg is actually keyed into like a D shape, but I didn't notice that when I first was trying to do this. So when I took it out for the first time and tried to put it back in, I didn't line it up. I just stuffed it in and I ended up cracking, really finely cracking the this side with the hole. So it fits in a little bit looser than it should be. It still doesn't fall out or anything, but do keep that in mind. And like I said, he does come with the hands for holding the guns. And like I said, the hands do swap really not that hard, which is nice. Very easy to swap, which is good. He holds the guns all really nice and securely. So there's the pistol. I think that looks pretty good. The rifle's a little more finicky to get into his hands. You kind of got to put it in a weird angle, kind of weave his finger through. It's kind of awkward. I'm going to be on it. There we go. Got that in there. I think the rifle also looks good. And you can take that. You can get them in two-handed poses. Take one of these cup grip hands, I guess you can call it. And articulation does allow you to be able to get those two-handed poses pretty easily. The only thing I will say is that because of the size of the rifle stock and the limitations of the articulation, maybe it's doable and it just takes a lot of work, but I have not been able to get him into a pose where he's like aiming down the sights or like aiming the rifle. I've only really been able to get him to, kind of fire from the hip or kind of like fake it where it's like the stock is like over his arm, kind of like this, which doesn't really look right. I haven't been able to get him to actually hold it in a proper aiming pose. So that's a bit unfortunate. Not a deal breaker or anything, but it's a bit disappointing, especially for, such an expensive figure. With all this articulation worked in, not being able to do that's a bit unfortunate. And then I guess I'll show with the Gaffy as well. I'm going to swap both the hands out here. Put the grip ones on. There's one, there's two. Take the Gaffy apart. Slot his hand in there. Just slide the other part through his hand here. These poses aren't going to be the best. I'm trying not to waste too much time here. Yeah, it's not going to be the best pose, but you see you can't get him to hold the Gaffy stick, which I think is super cool. And I think then the last accessory that he comes with is his biggest accessory. And I would say definitely one of the, or if not the main selling point of this figure, definitely was a major selling point for me, that he comes with the entire throne, which is super awesome. It's quite big. Here's a figure for scale. It's in scale as far as I can tell. And taking a closer look at it, pretty nicely detailed. You've got the cushion there, and I kind of like how it's kind of got these folds and ripples in it, make it look like someone's sitting in it or has been sitting in it. And you've got these subtle cracks with a bit of a subtle black wash on there. You got the red lettering there. Got the rancors, and they kind of got this like worn copper effect going on there, which I think looks really nice. A bit of more of like this black fade, which looks cool. Not really much going on the back, but there's still some sculpted detail and wash going on. So I think that's very cool. Very awesome. I do not know the Hot Toys figures come with the throne, and it's hard to say if any other figure will come with a throne. I don't know. With Vintage Collection, you have to buy the entire throne room set to get the throne, at least as of right now, and who knows if they'll include it with the Black Series or not. But he does sit in it pretty easily, so I'm just gonna take this stuff out of his hands. Swap his hands here. Put his fists back on for now. And you can get him to sit in it pretty easily. Again, I'm not gonna like go out of my way to do a crazy good job of posing here, just trying to get the point across. But you can get him sitting on it pretty easily. And I think that looks really awesome, especially when you take the time to actually give him a good pose. But yeah, absolutely love that. Very awesome they include that. If they didn't include the throne, I'm not sure if I would have. I'm not sure I would have bought this. I might have just waited for a Black Series release. But with the throne, yeah, that's just such a cool display piece and will be such an awesome centerpiece for my Book of Boba Fett Mando shelf that I have for Black Series and some other Figuarts. But I guess last thing to do now is just do some comparisons with some other figures that I think would, be interesting to compare with or make sense, I guess. You want to be careful when articulating when bending the leg like this. This strap does like to get caught, so you want to free that up before you move it so you don't break anything. Straighten him out here. I might also swap his head. With the there you go. Thrown off the side. Ah, come on. All right, so doing some comparisons. I guess first with another Figuarts actually. Here he is with the Season 2 Mando Figuarts, which is also how he appeared in the Book of Boba Fett, aside from not having his helmet on. And I think they look pretty good together. Unfortunately, my Mando is broken. His leg completely snapped off. He's literally just bouncing on his right leg right now, which sucks. But I think these guys do look pretty good together. So if you have this Mando, he'll work well. And here he is with a Black Series offering of Mando. And I think these guys look good together. I think the Boba Fett will fit into your Black Series collection. If you primarily collect Black Series like I do, I think you'll fit right in, no problem. Here he is with the Black Series Fennec Shand, which I think they both look pretty good together as well. Pretty sure she is supposed to be a little bit shorter than him, so that works. Here he is with the closest thing that Black Series has done so far to this look. Here's the Mandalorian Morak Boba Fett, basically. I think very cool. Both cool figures. I still really like the Black Series one. I think the Black Series one does have some better looking proportions, has a better shaped helmet. But I think overall the Figuarts one is a lot better, as it should be. It's a lot more money. It should be. But sometimes that's not the case. But in this case, I do think this one is a lot better. And there's one thing real quick. I'll pop his helmet off. And then there's just an idea of the difference in the head sculpts there. I do think the Figuarts one is a lot better, leagues better. I don't think the Black Series one is bad, but Figuarts one, I think, especially in the sculpt, you can just tell in the sculpt, is so much better. Put your helmet back on. And then lastly, here he is with the Vintage Collection Book of Boba Fett. The only other figure I have so far that is actually the same look. And I still really love this Vintage Collection figure. It still has its merits. There's actually some points of articulation that actually work better on the Vintage Collection figure, believe it or not. And I do really like the soft goods on the Vintage Collection one better. As you can see, this is how I wish the Figuarts was, how it sits so much better in a neutral pose as opposed to how the Figuarts actually is. yeah, the vintage collection figure is no slouch, but I do still think the Figuarts is really good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a long video. I apologize for that, but Figuarts just have so much going on. It's tough to keep the video condensed. But thank you guys for watching. Overall, I think this is a really awesome figure. I think if you are a fan of this look, you don't want to wait for a Black Series version of this figure, and you want the throne, I would definitely recommend picking this up if you can spend the money on it. It's right now readily available. I got mine on Amazon Japan. If you don't particularly care for this look for Boba Fett, don't care to have the throne, or content to wait for Black Series to, I assume, eventually make their version, or maybe wait to see if Mayfex has an offering, then yeah, it might be an easy pass. That's kind of up to you. But I personally think it's really great. Even some of its negatives aside, I think it's still a really awesome figure that's worth getting if you like me and like this look. So anyways, that's all I got. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one. May the Force be with you.